Welcome back. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. Every year, the World Press Freedom Index, published by Reporters Without Borders, is cited by governments, international institutions, diplomats, news organizations, and civil society groups as one of the world's most influential measures of media freedom. The annual ranking assesses 180 countries and territories and has become a widely used reference point in debates around democracy, governance, and civic freedoms. In its 2026 edition, RSF said the global average score had fallen to its lowest level in the index's 25-year history, and that more than half of the world's countries now fall into its difficult or very serious categories. But alongside debate over the rankings themselves, scrutiny has increasingly shifted to the institution producing them. What RSF is, how it functions, how it decides rankings, who finances it, and whether transparency standards around those processes should evolve as its influence grows. The Sunday Guardian has contacted more than 24 journalists based in New Delhi and multiple state capitals, including senior journalists. None said they received an RSF questionnaire during their careers, including in off-record conversations. The broader argument extends beyond RSF itself. Some critics argue that international governance indicators, including media rankings, may reflect assumptions more common in Western institutional frameworks and can shape international perceptions of non-Western states. Joining us to discuss this Sunday Guardian exclusive is Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, former diplomat. We also have Himanshu Bhatt, senior journalist, live with us. Ambassador Mukherjee, what do you make of this Sunday Guardian exclusive investigation on this organization that is conducting this World Press Freedom Index, as coming out with it? And of course, its lack of transparency is pretty evident, but also one wonders who really they're surveying in India to decide whether the press is free or not.
Well, actually, Uday, thank you for having me on your program. This organization, which I had interacted with when I was posted in Paris twice and had a very long stint there. They are called Rapporteurs sans frontières, which means reporters and press freedom beyond frontiers. It is important to understand that the French have a very different approach to this issue because, for instance, they consider it to be perfectly fine to have a cartoon, let's say, where somebody has beheaded Prophet Muhammad. They don't think that that is going beyond press freedom. In other words, they don't draw the fine line that many of us in multi-ethnic, multi-religious societies draw between what is press freedom and what is responsible press. So, for instance, you would recall that there have been instances in France where they have actually condoned, for instance, let's say, they don't even care if somebody burns the Bible in public. Whereas here in India, which is where the Christians are in a minority, 99% Indians would be horrified if the Bible is burned in public as an act of protest. So I'm just saying this to make your audience understand that where this organization comes from, Rapporteurs sans frontières, have a completely different approach to what is press freedom, and it flows from the French Revolution of 1789, the rigid division between church and state because of what led to the revolution. And till today, for instance, the insistence that if you go to a French public government-funded school, you cannot wear a cross, you cannot wear a turban, you cannot wear a headscarf. They do it irrespective of which religion you come from. In my opinion, and I'm glad that Rashmi has joined the panel. Hi, Rashmi. It is, we should develop an organization which is reputed and which builds up indices which show freedom of the press, but from the perspective of a noisy, raucous, democratic country of 1.4 billion people, which is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi-sect, and where we have somehow managed over the years to build up a balance between these differing issues which otherwise would have pulled this great nation apart. Under those circumstances, I compliment the Sunday Guardian, and I'm not surprised that reputed press journals were not contacted, or journalists, because they also have a short listing of people from every country whom they contact who think the way they do or who understand what they think. Like I understand, but I'm not a journalist. I understand what they think because I've spent more than 12 years in France. I know their psyche. I know what they mean. They are actually, when you talk about liberalism, they are the most liberal in the entire world. They can teach a lot to President Trump on what liberalism means. For them, this is their ideology. You can't change it. The answer to it is we are a major emerging country. We should develop indicators not just for freedom of press, but other things too. Because in many other indicators, I find it is amazing that India is right at the bottom of the heap. We are along with Afghanistan. We are along with Iraq. I'm not able to understand on what basis these conclusions have come to. So I think that the Sunday Guardian has done a
Yes.
great initiative, and
Okay.
we should urge eminent think tanks and tankers to think along these lines and build up.
Absolutely. You know, because it is pretty ironical and hypocritical, Himanshu Bhatt, if you have an organization that is trying to rank others on press freedom and transparency, not being very free and transparent in its own, A, funding, B, rationale in how the rankings are carried out, C, in responding to questions and criticism as well, and D, in being very arbitrary in how these rankings actually function. What do you make of this Sunday Guardian story, Himanshu Bhatt, and also the big questions this raises fundamentally about this outfit carrying out this index?
Second thing first. What you asked second, I'll go into that first. Agreeing to what Bashute Mukherjee, ambassador, said, I'll go a step further and say, I am reminded of our EAM saying, Europe seemed to think all Europe's problems are world's problems, and world's problems are not Europe's problems. I'll put it a little differently and say, Europe seemed to still think that, what they do in Europe with the white-skinned people applies to the world, and what world wants it does not matter to them. And starting with this, I will come to the point straight away and say, when can you ignore a 1/6 of a world humanity? When every sixth person of the world, on the world map is an Indian by and large, we should like to know that these organizations which come up with a tiny bit, population, do they really represent the wish and do they really represent the expressions of the people of the world? Do they really do that? We are a robust democracy. See, I'll give that much to Bharat, that we have our opposition shouting on roads. But what happens in some of the Western countries? Do they allow that? And the most pertinent question to that is, they are a liberal country, fine. But that, pseudo-liberalism with an Indian context, with the Bharatiya context, does not work. I would have a simple question first, from where does the funding come? And when I see the name of a Ford Foundation there, my eyes go haywire. I think you can understand what I'm trying to say. That anti-Bharat, anti-India work has been done by Ford Foundation to a great extent. And so I'm not surprised, when Sunday Guardian did this article and asked people, eminent journalists, that they were not contacted. They found that they were not contacted. Probably nobody in India was contacted. Only the forms were filled. I'll go up to that extent and say,
Yes.
I'll give you one more example, pertinent example of Europe. What's happening with BBC? Who collects fund for BBC? British government? Do you call that a free press? I have a very simple question here. And I would like, this white-skinned Europeans to answer it once at least. That tell me, you people have been sitting that India is a poor country. People do not have food to eat. People are on the roads. It's a country of snake charmers and this and that. And you want to run. You want to send your satellite to the moon. How can you do that? You have that habit. Europeans have this habit.
Okay.
And I was on this show also a couple of years ago when this, Reporters Without Borders had come out with this, index of that particular year, maybe 2024. And then again also I said, they do not understand what journalism is. Do they even know how many news portals are there in Bharat? How many news channels operate in Bharat? How many news publications, daily publications are there in Bharat?
Okay.
In how many languages?
Okay.
Do they even know that?
Okay.
Do they?
Okay, I'll come back to you. Let me also bring in Rashmi Samant, a human rights activist who's also joining us now on the broadcast. Rashmi Samant, firstly, your first reaction to the Sunday Guardian investigation and story, what it really reveals about, the arbitrariness with which such rankings are carried out, what you actually think about these rankings and indexes in the first place, and really if this leaves a question mark on how with such authority it can be relied upon, by Norwegian journalists like we saw recently.
Firstly, I would like to congratulate the Sunday Guardian team for, carrying out this very interesting piece of investigation. There have definitely been issues with ranking systems, be it ranking universities, be it ranking press index or happiness in different countries. I've always seen that there has been a sort of, Western ideal or Western perspective of looking at the world, in this case, very Eurocentric outlook, which tends to discount the lived realities of many other countries, of whose context is entirely missing to these people. Very recently, I think a Nordic journalist came out saying that there's no press freedom in India, but she knows nothing about India. When she was asked what she knew about India, she said that, she knows about yoga and curry. And I think that is insufficient. You don't even begin to know this country with just yoga and curry. I've always felt that the entire, be it starting with the opaque tiny sample sizes, the echo chamber bias of these indexes, to one size fits all Western standardization that's been followed. I think there's this heavy problem that's existed. There's intense problem that's existed with this kind of ranking system. And there's also the paradox of absurd comparisons. For many years, countries like Afghanistan have ranked better than India. At least I recall in 2023, they ranked Afghanistan in a better place than India. And I mean, do you think active war zones with Taliban in charge can have better press freedom than India? Absolutely not. So there's definitely a lot of paradox that exists in absurd comparisons, and I'm glad it does exist, because for a very long time, since these indices came into being, since these indexes came into being, many countries, especially India, we've never critically questioned these indexes and the intent behind them. It's only in the recent years, the past decade or so, that we've even begun questioning these indexes and why they are there in the first place, or what are their criteria. I'm glad we are doing it, but for a very long time, Western institutions have gotten a free run by creating institutions which can, create a sort of public opinion that then have, a cascading impact on governance, on opinion on different governments, on local politics in many countries, on various other things. I definitely feel that they've been weaponized by Western countries, by Western institutions to get their way, in a way to set up a neo-colonial world. I'm glad that these paradoxes are so, eye-catching in a way that people are finally compelled to call it out. I mean, if you put, India in the same category as active war zones, that's a wake up call. It also, I think, points to the hubris that these indices, the institutions coming up with these indexes have, sort of grown over the years because
Okay.
back in the day, I think they didn't dare to be so brazen in the way that they put down other countries, but they've become so brazen that they're confident putting India in the same category as countries which
Yes.
are active hot zones. So I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing, it's a blessing in disguise that finally our countrymen are waking up to the double standards. We finally are critically questioning it
Yes.
and seeking better institutions which are domestic, which
Absolutely. Is it
understand our context,
is it then
but also
time?
have good intention.
Is it then time, Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, to come out with another ranking, another index done by us, but done by us in a more opaque, transparent, and of course, accurate manner, rather than this, this index, which obviously now many more questions are being raised than actually answers given. Also, questions about the funding. Who funds these kind of indexes? What its purpose is? How should we be responding to it now that there are question marks officially which have been raised through investigations like this?
Well, actually, I think that we should have done this several years ago. We were fully aware, as my co-panelists have pointed out, that these are done without any understanding of Indian conditions, Indian democracy, what makes us what we are, etc., etc. We should actually do it with the help of some reputed think tank, and it should have on its governing body uh, some international experts also, because the rankings which are given through indices that we would select through consultation should be accepted internationally as realistic and correct. So we should set up a system by which whatever ranking system we make and for whatever topic, they are respected within India and outside India. And it can easily be done. There's no reason why we should not have done it earlier. But I think now we have a great incentive to do it as soon as possible, so that such unfair rankings, which makes India look so so bad in the Western world, and these rankings are looked at. Even for instance, if you apply for a UN job, Uday, let me tell you, they look at your country's rankings with so many on some of these topics. Let's say you want to join the UN office in New York, and you're an Indian passport holder. Your interviewer may very well ask you that you come from a country where there's no press freedom, you come from a country where minorities are not respected, etc. And they will start reading out these rankings to you. You are 120th on the list along with Afghanistan. So it really is high time that we set our own house in order and got these rankings off in a manner by which they are internationally recognized and respected.
Yes. Himanshu, but as far as, of course, these rankings are concerned, should it now be the onus of us to take this up, for India also to come out with a similar sort of ranking and index? And do you also believe now this is a wake-up call to those who were treating it as some sort of gospel of truth? This investigation, these questions that have been raised now, should lead many who were referring to this now to stop those references and expose it for what it is.
The gospel of truth, it was considered in the past, maybe some 15, 20 years ago, when you wanted a job and they will throw these rankings at you. Not today. They do not have those guts today. Let me put that word, guts, because we have started calling spade a spade. When you start calling spade a spade, things do change. And in the world of 2026, the position of Bharat is changing. And changing quite quickly. That is the way I look at it. Yes, we should take the onus of setting up a good ranking, which everybody will understand. Okay, what's happening, where is happening, why is it happening? All those things do come into play. But then, here again the question catch comes here. That every time a brown-skinned man tries to do something, as you know, Ambassador was saying, that you want a UN job and they will throw this ranking at you. They will say that you are not protecting your minorities. But don't they have the figures? Don't we have the figures today? That there were 8.4% Hindus in Pakistan, and now today, after 70 years, there is not even 2%. That needs to be told to the world. So all I'm trying to tell you is, you know, the way BBC thrived for 70 years on British Broadcasting Company, on a British government money, from so many Indians, NRIs living there, were paying that money. Why can't we have a media that is internationally recognized and that has a voice? The government needs to do something there first and come up with a plan wherein we will have our worldwide media of Bharat. Today
Yes.
again, we trust CNN. Bloomberg says this. BBC says that. Reuters says this. Why don't we say ANI says that? Why can't we make ANI so big? That's my fundamental question. So yes, we must take an onus, but this is the gospel truth. The changing days need a change in environment and the mindset. And the mindset of Bharatiya today needs to change very quickly.
Okay. Okay. Rashmi, also, the fact is that what is really influencing these 8 individuals? A, is it just 8 individuals deciding an entire World Press Freedom Index? That's bizarre in itself. What is influencing these 8 individuals in putting Norway at number 1, India at 157, and various other countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan at their respective positions, obviously above India as well? What is influencing these 8 people? How can 8 people decide an entire World Press Freedom Index? And are you surprised, Rashmi, that none of the journalists we spoke to have claimed they were, interviewed or spoken to? I don't think Himanshu would know of any either. I personally don't know. Neither would you or Ambassador Mukherjee, I guess, on the panel as well. So here are 4 more individuals who know nothing about people who've been surveyed. And we know a lot of journalists, I'm sure, amongst 4 of us as well.
Yes.
Absolutely, Uday. I definitely believe that there is a sort of intent behind, putting out the rankings, and it is definitely not the best of intent. What these rankings of late have been reminding me is of people purchasing awards just so that, they can appear philanthropic in society. So they've become very, similar to purchased spots. For a very long time, these spots have had cascading impact on economy, on the sort of opportunities that their citizens have had abroad, as Ambassador Mukherjee pointed out. And there's been a nexus which have existed based on these international intergovernmental structures, which have all operated on a back scratching, basis, wherein one ranking, would then be supported and it would be accepted by multiple institutions, and hence there's an entire economy that runs around it. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the top countries just bought their spot, or the people putting this ranking together are actually paid by different organizations to, put certain countries above the others. Because I know this is a very brazen statement, but the opaqueness behind the sort of ranking and the kind of system or the procedure that they're following to come up with it is so opaque that it does invite such speculative guesses. And since the cascading impact is so deep, I don't have a hard time believing that there is malintent and there is a sort of nexus that operates behind it. That being said, I think for a country like India, it goes either ways. Either we build up our population to have the confidence that they do not seek validation
Yes.
from institutions abroad,
Okay.
or we come up with our own system.
Right.
Both can go hand in hand, because I think one of the deeper challenges that we do have is to mentally also decolonize, because somewhere or the other we still seek validation from institutions abroad,
Okay.
be it appreciation or these kinds of insults that are veiled. So I think that is also essential as we start caring less and less about these indexes. I do believe that their relevance will also fade on its own,
Okay.
because the reason why they've been able to gain a foothold within institutions and influence
Yes.
certain decisions in institutions is because of how people have been perceiving these
Yes,
indexes,
and
and
that
I think
that perception
overcome
must
that.
change after all of this has come out. Okay, I have to leave it at that. We've run out of time. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion. We're quickly turning